the ESPYs. And we had no clue that the ESPYs were on.
Yeah, we had a nice dinner, Hutton, you and I enjoyed the evening and had fun here in Nashville. And not at one point in the entire evening did I think, you know what, I really need to get home and catch the ESPYs. Never thought that all night. And I've talked about this before when there's so much outrage about things that ESPN or the ESPYs that they do, that they award, that they honor during these shows. And it really all starts to matter less when you start caring less. And I am here to tell you, this is a true confession right now. Me, Chad Withrow, I watched the ESPYs for years because it was the sporting event on a night where there's no sports. Last night, forgot it happened, didn't watch a replay of it, haven't seen a single clip from it. And I am here to confess to you that my life is not worse because of it. Don't care. It really is a passing, not even a passing thought. It is an afterthought of what goes on in the sports landscape now. And it's because of a lot of silly things that they've done. It's also because award shows in general are so incredibly awkward and I think are really on the downturn with all of them for the most part. So didn't watch it, didn't care. And I think people that get really upset about things that the ESPYs will do, if you stop caring and stop watching, I think you'll find that your life is not worse because of it. And one of the things that is a reason you probably shouldn't watch is something we're about to talk about that they tried to pull last night.
Yeah, luckily social media has receipts just like ESPN has the rights to the content, where Will Cain, formerly of ESPN, now with Fox, he is, at the time, this is 4 years ago, with Charlie Arnault, who's sitting in with Will on First Take on ESPN 4 years ago. And they get into equal pay and the discussion about the U.S. men's national team and men's soccer in general and the revenue versus what was seen and known for the U.S. women's national team, which has been and still remains their top priority. They want equal pay. And Will was laying out why it's just not a black and white issue. And it's not just a clear cut, that's what they're getting, so that's what you're getting. And they took a piece of this segment, which you'll hear in just a moment, and inserted it into this montage as they handed out last night the Arthur Ashe Courage Award for the U.S. women's national team, discussing equal pay and women's rights. And it comes across in the piece, in the montage, as Will Cain, sexist. But it's not the case at all if you listen to what he was actually saying and you don't just clip the one sentence. So you'll hear portions of what was going down last night, and then you'll hear Charlie Arnault and Will Cain from First Take 4 years ago.
I think equal pay is a ridiculous concept in and of itself. Soccer, for better or worse, on the men's side, across this globe, is much more popular than the women's.
Oh, we get that argument all the time.
I'll tell you why it's like this. Now, there's two things, first of all. When you talk about, as Trevor Scales just laid out, the bonus difference between the men's team and the women's team, between what a winner, if it had been the U.S. men, would get in the World Cup and the women. The women got a pool, or got paid out from a pool of $30 million from the Women's World Cup. The men would draw from a pool of $400 million, okay? $400 million, $30 million. Why is that? It's because the Men's World Cup generates $6 billion in revenue. The Women's World Cup generates $131 million in revenue. If you want to talk about pay disparity, the Women's World Cup players get paid out 20% of the total revenue. The men get paid out 7%. As a percentage point, they are getting much more. The problem is, for anybody desiring equal pay, and by the way, I think equal pay is a ridiculous concept in and of itself. If the women generate more revenue, they should get paid more than the men. Don't strive for getting the same, strive for getting what you're worth. And if you're worth more, then get more. And so what I'm saying to you right now is soccer, for better or worse, on the men's side, across this globe, is much more popular than women's soccer.
The women's game had higher ratings than the men's, though. So what do you say to that?
Charlie, that's in the United States.
That was in the U.S.
And that's comparing a women's World Cup final that featured the United States against a men's World Cup final in the United States that didn't feature the U.S.
I mean, when you hear all of that in its entirety, it's way different than the small clip that they inserted, along with they're showing different tweets and feedback and, you know, reaction to the idea of equal pay. And you can see how it's taken way out of context.
Yeah, it was intellectually dishonest of ESPN to play the clip the way they did it. I'll also say this. When did facts become sexist? Because I heard the clip they played, and I didn't even think it was that bad. He said, for better or worse, men's soccer is more popular across the globe. What is sexist about that? That's true. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't even know why he would be mad, or anyone would. I'd say that right now, and you could clip that all day. I'm speaking of fact.
But what they clipped is him also saying, I think equal pay is a ridiculous concept in and of itself.
Yes.
And it was playing into their theme and their tone of propping up the U.S. women's national team for, you know, being so courageous in their fight for this.
Yeah, and what Will was saying, and you're right about that part. That, again, intellectually dishonest of ESPN to do all of this. But what he's saying about the equal pay, and you hear more of it there with that clip, is if they were making more or there was more interest, they should make more than the men. You know, it shouldn't be just about just making it equal. It's about what you're worth, so go get what you're worth. I agree with everything that he's saying. You know, if you're going to frame it in that text, the whole thing about equal pay is if you're doing the exact same job and you're worth the same amount in that job, then women should make the exact same amount as men, which I agree with that. If you're doing the same job and you are as valuable in that job, then you should make the equivalent of what the male counterpart makes in that same position. But this also leaves out, look, this is saying they're soccer players. So soccer players should make the same amount, right? They're all playing soccer. They're playing the same sport.
And it doesn't point to revenue.
One's a man's, one's a woman. But we live in a market-based economy, and you are what you generate, and you are what you're worth ultimately. And Will did a good job laying out the numbers there in that conversation with Charlie about $6 billion versus, I think the number he said was $180 million is what the World Cup generates, men to women. So it is going to be different.
131.
I've always argued this about the U.S. women's national team. I don't really understand. I mean, I understand it. I know Megan Rapinoe is annoying and she whines and people hate her politics and all that. I get that part of it. I don't necessarily understand the dislike, the disdain for the U.S. women's national team for this reason. In this country, we do applaud excellence, and they are excellent. They are the best
Dominant
on the global stage. They win World Cups. That's something our men's team would never dream of doing.
Yeah.
That may never happen in anyone's lifetime, the U.S. men winning a World Cup. And they do that consistently. So I applaud the excellence on the pitch of the U.S. women's national team. I don't know, maybe they get this. I would like sort of an incentive-based pay. They should make $500,000 apiece if they win the World Cup. I'm all for that.
Based on results?
Based on results. You make the final, you make a certain amount. I'm sure that they have an escalator where they get more the further they go. But I've long been in favor of that. But, I mean, to say that men's sports is more popular than women's sports on the whole, and that men's soccer is more popular and generates more money than women's soccer, therefore men get paid more than women in soccer, that's not sexist. Those are facts. We can't misconstrue facts for racist or sexist.
Well,
those are the facts.
But also, like, it's a case in point would be in college right now with name, image, likeness. You know, you're paid based on your value, popularity. Livy Dunn is now doing national commercials for, is it her brand, her clothing brand, or is she?
No, it's for Viore. It's a brand that's been around.
But I mean, she's doing more than just Instagram posts now, you know, and it's not any of the quarterbacks we're discussing, you know. But we can also compare it to what we saw from Alabama last year. I mean, they have players on national commercials. Livy Dunn's doing that too.
And hey, people that want to get on Livy Dunn and say, well, what has she done? Why? That's ridiculous. Right? That to me is more sexist than what Will Cain or anyone there is saying when someone says, why is this little girl making so much money? What has she done? Well, she's got a following and she's got a marketing ability. And people want her associated with their brand. So she's going to make a ton of money for that. Good for her.